Some of you may already know me, but if you don't, you probably see me somewhere in school, but can't quite pinpoint exactly where. Well, I'll tell you. You've probably seen me playing volleyball, whether that is during recess or in a game or in a 5 meter vicinity of one. I've probably been there. But if you haven't guessed already, it is my favorite sport, right? Kinda. You see, as glorious as volleyball is, having no rough physical contact, you get to play with your friends. Here's what nobody tells you. And it's the fact that every single mistake that you make directly contributes to the opponent's point. Even the smallest of mistakes, like touching the net, the opponent's point. You mess up your serve, the opponent's point. You get the idea. And this weight of knowing that every single mistake that you make pushes your team one step closer to losing that game is felt by everyone on that court. And that's also why I believe that making mistakes in volleyball is just that much more frustrating, because you can quantifiably see how much you're letting your team down by. Exhibit A. Yes, this is a real image from our game, and it's the consequence of making the game-losing mistake. You wouldn't want to be that guy. But the key idea there is letting your team down. Because the moment you start worrying too much about your team, that's when you can have this mindset shift from playing to win to playing not to lose. And this isn't just about sports. It's about how this fear of social judgment controls all of us. And today, I want to talk about the importance of that fear and how that causes this mindset shift. But more importantly, how to fix it so that we can all go beyond that horizon. Social judgment refers to the way that we evaluate people's actions and behaviors in a social context. And when we add fear to that definition, we get social anxiety, which I'm sure most of us have heard of. And whether you realize it or not, this fear has affected all of us at some point. Don't believe me? Well, let me give you an example that we students have all faced at least once. You're paying attention in class, and the teacher is teaching something that is supposedly easy. But then once she's done teaching, you have absolutely no idea what she just said. So then you do the next logical step of raising your hand, but then you look around you, and you see no one else showing any signs of doubt besides you. So then you scratch that idea, put your hand back down, and wonder whether you should drop the subject or not. But in reality, every single person there was feeling the exact same way. They were just too embarrassed to raise their hand at a simple topic. And that is precisely this fear of social judgment, or in this case, this fear of looking stupid. But in fact, 12% of people, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, say that they experience this more severe social anxiety disorder at least one point in their life. I mean, I'm experiencing it right now. I have a whole audience in front of me judging me. But while some people feel this greatly and some hardly, it all affects us at some point and traps us behind a horizon that we can never cross. And this fear has affected me as well. If you ask any of my friends or teammates, you'll know that I get around 100% debuff to my skills when playing against certain schools. And I didn't know why until recently, because there's psychology behind this. In 1965, a psychologist by Robert Zanjuk said that when we feel we are being watched, we perform better at simple tasks, but worse at more complex ones, with a sport obviously being complex. And that might be the reason. Because if you add on top of the already large amount of judgment from your teammates, your coaches, maybe even your parents, and you add a large crowd in a new location with new people, you can only imagine the amount of pressure that an athlete has to face. And when you start thinking about this, it gets pretty scary. Because eventually, this leads to that mindset shift I talked about, where you stop thinking, let me score a point for my team, and start thinking, let me not mess up for my team. And this change, while subtle, is massive, as it changes the actions of that player for the remainder of the game, as he stops taking the risks that are essential to the learning and development of that athlete's skills. And it blocks them from developing into a better player. But because when you stop playing to win, you shrink. And this doesn't just apply to sports. It can apply to anyone and any task. Because instead of attacking that project metaphorically, you just play it safe and do the bare minimum. But why am I telling you about this? Well, frankly, this is an important time for our generation, as it is precisely that time of growth. And this could mean that someone out there is having this barrier stop them from becoming better. But, so, how do we fix it? Well, I'll be honest, fixing social anxiety isn't easy. But while it's not easy as flipping a switch, it does certainly help having a group of people surround you to support you when you make a failure. In fact, research from Harvard suggests on something called psychological safety, suggests that teams perform better when players feel safe to fail. And you see, coming back to volleyball now, and that's the key to going beyond that horizon. But coming back to volleyball now, you see, this year is the last year that I'll be playing with the grade 12s in volleyball. And it was some of the most fun that I'll ever have. But one moment that I'll never forget is the last game of our season at the Akamis tournament. And this was an important game as well. It determined whether we got a podium finish or nothing. So you could imagine the amount of pressure, right? But here's what happened. At that moment, since it was the last memories that we would have of each other, at that moment, nobody cared whether they made a mistake. Nobody cared whether you made a mistake. Nobody cared whether the crowd judged us for it. At that point, nobody cared what anyone thought. And at that point, we were just having fun with the weight lifted off of us. And what do you know? We ended up winning that game and securing that podium finish. And that changed my perspective until today. Because, so, after hearing about this, I hope you guys make some changes as well. If you're an introvert or don't like talking to people, why not talk to that new person? Because who cares? If you're an ultra genius who never makes any mistakes, why not looking dumb for once? And if you're that player who gets angry at your teammates for making a mistake, you know who you are. Why not be encouraging for once? Because we all know the latter benefits no one. Because when we feel that it's okay to make mistakes, that's when we truly go beyond what we thought we were capable of. And maybe that's what beyond the horizon really means. Not some distant future, but the moment we stop shrinking and start playing to win. Thank you.